Brought to you by Moonbeam Multimedia.
This is 16 to 1, a podcast about education, teaching, and learning. Happy almost New Year.
Happy almost New Year.
Yeah.
Again. Well, I guess once this comes out, it is. So,
Yeah.
Happy New Year. If that's
Happy
your
New
thing.
Year. It's going to be the year of the
Horse.
Okay. Wasn't this the year of the what?
It was the year of the snake. And now the horse.
Okay. I like this change of pace. That feels like a correction in the vibes.
Next year is the year of the goat.
Okay. I don't know what any of these mean. I'm going to have to look them up and see what kinds of blessings or curses we can expect
This
from
is
these.
actually the year of the fire horse.
Fire horse?
Yep.
Okay.
That doesn't
That's even cooler.
feel ominous.
Let's do it.
This is like on death he rode.
Apocalypse horse?
Yes.
It's the year of the first horseman of the apocalypse. Okay.
So I've been reading on some suggestions of what to do to welcome in the new year.
Yeah.
I'm going to try them.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay.
The worst that can happen is the year continues.
That's true.
The worst thing that could happen is it persists. Can I just summarize
It's been a
education?
year in America so far. We're only at February 16th, but it's been a whole entire year.
I know. So anyways, the year of the fire horse, it does say one way to welcome in the new year is to open all of your windows and your doors. Let the horse run in. Doesn't say how to get the horse out. Just says let it in. I'm going to celebrate it by not cleaning, which it says to do. I guess I have to take a day off.
Okay.
And letting in some fresh air. We're just welcoming the new year. Can I just say the other thing that's really daunting about this year is that we're supposed to be like throwing the biggest birthday party for America. And I just don't think it has earned it this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not feeling in a celebratory mood.
You will not catch me in a birthday hat. You've got time to turn it around.
Yeah, again, only February. Okay. Before we get into it today, want to go ahead and remind you, sign up for the 16-1 podcast email newsletter. That's where you can get the latest updates, episode announcements, resources, and workshop offerings from Moonbeam Multimedia. That is us. And if there's a story in your local educational community that you think we should cover, we'd love to hear about it. Please contact us using our website or write at hello@16to1.com.
This episode brought to you by one of Chelsea's special interests.
Andrew Carnegie.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. A couple of years ago, I read 2 books, and I'm sure that I talked about them both on the podcast. There's Palaces for the People by Eric Klinenberg and Meet You in Hell by Les Standiford. And I enjoyed both of those books so much, and if you want to learn more about what we're talking about today, I would highly recommend both of them. They're great reads. They're very interesting. But both of them deal with libraries as public infrastructure. And I've always wanted to do an episode on Carnegie libraries. This huge and ambitious public resource project of making libraries all over the country. And the longer that we live in the legacy of those libraries in this country, the more questions I have about them and about the system of philanthropy and education that they created. So today we're just going to explore it a little bit, ask some questions about this as a philanthropic project and as an educational one. Could you please kick us off? Tell us a little bit about the person of Andrew Carnegie to set the stage.
Andrew Carnegie was born in Scotland. So in 1835, he's born. I'm going to make this very, very long story a very short story.
Okay.
We're just going to cut to immense wealth.
Immense.
Okay.
There are a lot of steps in between Scotland and immense wealth if you're Andrew Carnegie, but yeah, give us the abbreviated. Give us the abbreviated version.
Okay, here's what I have. Well, it's just like any titan of anything has like the most comprehensive story to tell. And it's like, that's nice. But
And
I'm
that
really
is-
trying to tell this part.
That
of
is
the
what
story.
Meet You in Hell is all about, by the way. That's about Carnegie and Frick and their building of the American steel empire that led to all this enormous wealth.
Stop it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're getting ahead of me.
I'm getting some crumbs.
So back to
out of
Scotland.
wine.
I'm just
back
kidding.
to Scotland.
I'm just kidding. We are once again in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We just are really geographically set.
There's a lot happening around Pittsburgh.
This podcast focuses on Pittsburgh.
We're becoming a
events.
Pittsburgh regional podcast.
Oh, that's going to be tough for our Columbus
I'm
friends.
kidding.
Okay.
We're definitely not doing that.
We would never. Okay.
Go Penguins?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
The Blue Jackets girl over here is in pain.
We say go Steelers.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Go Steelers.
We do that.
Yep.
So Carnegie, he ends up in Pennsylvania.
His family, by the way, weavers, textile makers from Scotland, but his father had some success in business, but he bought all of these hand-powered looms. There were these advances in manufacturing technology that essentially rendered them obsolete. So his family has to come to America to start from scratch, essentially. He's really penny pinching at the beginning. So,
well, Andrew isn't penny pinching because he's a child, but I suppose he would be as well.
He seemed to be penny pinching and frugal even as a child, according to his voluminous autobiographical writings.
Okay,
take that.
I left that part out of my research.
Okay.
I'll follow up. Okay,
he was penny pinching.
So Carnegie works his way through a series of jobs. He had been a messenger and an operator at the Ohio Telegraph Company and had also worked as a secretary and telegraph operator at the Pennsylvania Railroad Company.
Mid-1800s? Is that where we are now?
Yeah.
Ish? Okay.
He ends up working his way up to being the superintendent of the Pittsburgh division of the Pennsylvania Railroad. That's on Monopoly, if you're not familiar with it.
A lot of what we're talking about today is on the Monopoly board. It's true.
So just get out your thimble. So he becomes the superintendent of the Pittsburgh division of the Pennsylvania Railroad. That job really gave him the connections that he would need to, become Carnegie, really. It seemed like that job especially gave him access to people and names and places and all of these things that he was going to end up using to his great benefit. During the Civil War, so 1861 to 1865, Carnegie realizes that iron products are desperately needed and they're very expensive because wars are very expensive. Not to get too into the weeds of the Civil War, but one of the reasons for the Union success was the access to railways. Anyways, Carnegie realizes that iron products, steelwork, all of that is really needed. And so he leaves the railroad and the telegraph world, and instead he decides to invest in ironworks. And cut to $1 bazillion later. That's roughly how it goes.
Yeah. He does keep a grip on rail. His venture into steel and iron is powered by his access to rail.
Right. Too. He's so familiar with the world, so he knows exactly what's coming. He's a smart guy. You got to give it to him because he was seeing it before anybody else knew to invest in it. So the rest of Carnegie's story is just an actual who's who of American high society. Henry Clay Frick, that was his business partner. Are they business partners?
Mm-hmm. They're like best frenemies. They do a lot of business.
I love that.
They do a lot
Some
of business.
heated rivalry?
Not quite that level,
wrong story.
They do a lot of business together, but they end up kind of on opposite sides of some conflict, and they have a deteriorating relationship later in life. Yeah.
And well, eventually they end up merging with J.P. Morgan's company, which is United States Steel Company. And here is my brief note of what happens next. I wrote, "This goes without saying, but this man was insanely wealthy and married later in life, had some mommy problems, and then decided he had too much money, that he hated charities, and needs people to be smarter. So, libraries." How'd I do?
Well, I'm not sure.
Do you want to add any notes?
I don't know if I would have put it in quite those exact words, but that's relatively close. He did have a disdain for what he thinks of as charity, his conception of throwing good money after bad when it comes to giving away one's wealth. But he was also an extraordinary proponent of giving away all your wealth during your lifetime to the extent that you have surplus wealth. Some of his essays and papers at the time, some of which created quite a stir because he was an extraordinarily wealthy person at the time, writing to put other extraordinarily wealthy people on notice that they should be giving away all of their money during their lifetime. It was a bit of a scandal to publish in a nationwide publication at the time.
So I want to approach Carnegie cautiously because he gets a little hero worshipy at times.
Yeah, the Carnegie Corporation also still funds millions of dollars worth of philanthropic projects a year.
Right now,
so good presently.
On you.
Yeah.
He himself, a little bit complicated. Also a ruthless dude at times.
Yes. Have you heard of the Homestead strike?
I have.
Okay, so
only because of you, though.
And your budding obsession with Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But, the Pittsburgh region. Allegheny County.
This is Allegheny, yeah.
Allegheny County was his home region in America.
Yep.
There are tons of steel mills and things around the area, but the Homestead strike was a labor strike that occurred among some of his workers in a factory town in Homestead, Pennsylvania, and it resulted in the deaths of several workers and several security guards that he hired to go break a strike.
Yeah.
It's one of the most violent labor-related events in American history, and
unions are still doing training on this strike. Certainly, it's probably on the slide deck.
It's a big one. It's a big one, and he created a lot of ill will, and it tarnished his reputation permanently. People wonder and muse about whether Carnegie's philanthropic pursuits were kind of an atonement for some of his more ruthless business practices. Now, I don't know for sure how he might have spoken about that, but he does go at it with great zeal. He thinks it's really important to get rid of your wealth.
I want to honor his works in so much as many of the libraries that still exist today are in our grasp because of his willingness to do this. So I want to be appreciative in that way, but I also want to highlight that we are well aware of his issues as well.
Complicated legacy. How do we get to the point where we have libraries built with his money all over the country?
So in 1835, he's born in Scotland. Okay. So I found an article from the Salt Lake Herald from Salt Lake City, Utah, March 22nd, 1901.
Okay.
It was titled, "His Gifts Are Scattered All Over the Country." Isn't that fun?
Benevolent Santa Claus.
I really liked it. Mm-hmm. In total, Carnegie gave enough money to support the building of nearly 1,700 libraries around the United States and around the world, just around 2,500. Carnegie dies in 1919, and at that point, he had given away to him $350 million, so billions with a B, equivalent today. Carnegie wasn't into just libraries. You might have heard him associated with a music hall or something like that. He also did educational grants. He had a grant to build 7,000 church organs. And when I was researching this, I wrote 700 and then I crossed it and I was like, 7,000
he does
church organs.
He writes this couple of essays. They get called the Gospel of Wealth. But in one of the essays, he enumerates things that he thinks are good expenditures of charitable dollars to give people advice, wealthy people advice about how to spend their money. And he
was like, more church organs.
He said libraries number one, but he said at the very end of the list on purpose were churches, because churches aren't for everyone. They're only for sectarian, he's like, these are sectarian communities. This is not for everyone. This is for just certain people. But he's like, churches, specifically church organs, they should all have really nice organs. Like, he's just all about the organ, the church organ. Did he
himself play?
I don't know. I don't know where this came from. I don't know. I'm going to have to look that one up.
I love the energy.
I would love to know more about why church organs specifically to him inspired
he probably
great
just
souledness.
Enjoyed their workings. I just see him being like a tinkerer, and I think he would just think that's a great way for a machine to work.
They are great mechanical inventions.
That's what I mean.
That's
like,
true.
That, I kind of wonder if it's just like an interest because he likes the way it...
So maybe it's just his builder, tinker,
I don't know, Andrew.
ingenuity.
Okay, so about libraries, though.
Yes.
From a young age, though, Carnegie appreciated libraries. He used them. He realized that not having access to books could be an issue for society. Growing up, he was actually inspired by a local colonel who would open up his library to the employees and share his books with those that couldn't afford them. He was definitely inspired by the work of someone who saw that books were worth sharing.
Well, he attributed some of his own success, financial success, to having had access to books at a certain time in his life.
He also seems like a by the bootstraps kind of guy.
He is the template for that. I could not give you a better template for American rags to riches. But it does seem to change him and make him quite rigid about what he thinks is the correct path to get there. And perhaps he doesn't notice how some of the steps along the way were fortuitous and luck driven rather than
like he is in a
ingenuity and self-driven,
If you're someone who's thinking about getting into the steel industry, geographically speaking, he is in it. When I was researching him, he feels a little like if he builds it, they will come. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If in this case we build libraries, hopefully people will go and learn and pull themselves up by the bootstraps and start the next great,
Well, he
write the next great American novel or whatever.
He goes even a little bit further than that and is kind of exclusionary about people who do not want to bootstrap. Yeah. He's like, okay, well, libraries aren't for them. But a persistent question for us as educators is like, that seems to serve the person or student who is already motivated and curious.
I agree with that.
Isn't it part of the challenge that we take on to reach those who aren't already at that place? Like, isn't that an even greater challenge, perhaps? It's a lasting question about that attitude, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
So, he is going to build libraries.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get a Carnegie library? So the community, and they had to be English-speaking, they would write a letter to Carnegie and his personal assistant, who we'll talk about more in a minute, requesting funds to support the creation of their library, wherever that may be. At first, many of the communities writing for support were places that already had a personal connection with Carnegie. The first place that was granted the funds to build a library was his adopted home county of Allegheny, Pennsylvania. And so that's kind of where it started. Local places who knew of Carnegie who was doing this thing, and then it would grow from there. Carnegie hires a personal assistant. His name is James Bertram, and he was actually the one that did a lot of the corresponding with the communities. He would inquire about where they are, their size, how many books they have, and all of those types of things. Communities had to have the land for it to be built on, and the town requesting money had to take care of the land and provide it.
Can I stick in a detail about James Bertram in here that I thought was interesting? So you had some notes about how they didn't prescribe a certain look for a Carnegie library. It doesn't have to have a certain design. The exterior, maybe the interior is a little more prescribed, but the longer this goes on, the pickier Bertram gets about which plans he approves and doesn't. So there's kind of like a shadow building code that they're enforcing for this, and it concentrated a number of these bids into a very small number of architecture and construction companies that were in and around their purview, right? Anyway, that was an interesting little diversion. I like how he got his claws in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of the agreement to receive the funds is that the town would have to put into writing its annual support that they would pledge to keep up on this library. I went through so many documents, just way too much fun researching, of course. My parents actually grew up in a very, very small town in south central-ish Ohio, and their library was a Carnegie library. I went through all 48 pages of the written correspondences between the superintendent of the schools and the Board of Ed and the county notary, the firm in Columbus that was the partner firm, and then back and forth with the group in Hoboken at the time who was in charge of handling the correspondences. Wild. I had a great time reading it.
It was like a case study in how philanthropy works, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I really wish we would bring this practice back, and maybe I'll start it myself, but every time that they would respond back and forth to each other, they would be like, yours of the 18th instant. We should do that. We should be counting how many times I have to interface with you before something gets done.
Oh, they like numbered their letters
for
back
the
and
37th forth? Email I have said to you. That's basically what this, like, that's how I was reading these letters. And the correspondences I was reading was the group in Hoboken who was issuing the funds and stuff at the time. They were like, you have held us back because you did not do X, Y, and Z. It was
you
like,
sent the letters to the wrong place.
Imagine getting shredded by a letter that someone wrote last week and is still mad at you. Anyways, my parents' hometown, they received $10,000 to build their library. That library still stands today. Their agreement as part of the deal with Carnegie was a guaranteed in perpetuity $500 each year.
Yeah.
To go towards the care of the library.
So this is a requirement. I think it was like...
It was a requirement. They had to say in writing how much they would guarantee every year because as soon as they built it, it was over. There was no Carnegie money that came back to keeping up. They didn't pay for the employees or anything like that.
But it was like a certain percentage of the initial gift, whatever that was, right? That they pledged. I think it was like 10% of
gotcha.
whatever the initial gift was. But you're right. The important thing is whatever that number is in perpetuity.
Yes.
Forever.
Yes.
Your town.
I read it. It was
now
hilarious.
has to provide support to this library building.
I'm actually going to spend some time going back through this town and seeing what their budget says, because I would love to see if the line item for the Carnegie is still there. Or if it's been upped. Hopefully it's been improved since $500 in 1911. And if you're in America, there's a good chance that you're within range of a Carnegie library. That's not even dramatic to say, basically, unless you're in like some deep southern state, the Midwest through the West, there's a good chance you're around it. Anyways, that was how I did most of the research that was for my little parents' hometown.
Just one thing real quick, which is about the libraries that said thanks but no thanks to this. There are a lot of libraries that could not afford to raise those funds or could not afford to pledge in perpetuity the upkeep costs. There are also communities like Wheeling, West Virginia, which is not that far away from us, about 45 minutes from here.
Yeah.
They rejected the offer of a Carnegie library outright. A lot of that animosity had to do with their understandably short memories for the Homestead strike, which was not that long ago. Yeah. And it's a big labor town. It did not go over well. Yeah. Just a few years later.
Someone from Wheeling requested a library? Or
they were going to put one there. I don't know how it was.
But the town has to request it.
This was the town voting down the levy.
So somebody from the town wrote the request for it, and then the town decided actually no?
I think that's what happened.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it wasn't like Andrew Carnegie just went around like plopping down libraries. Like, people had to request it to come to them. So that's fascinating. So yeah, it seems like the standard amount that most places received was around $10,000. That would cover the building of the library, and then, like we're saying here, everything else was up to them to keep up on. The upkeep, salaries, books, all of that.
Let's talk about this then as like a long-term philanthropic project. Because what you're talking about does reveal this sort of tension between, I don't know, call it top-down enlightenment. Some of Carnegie's writings are really quite pointed. The guy is like, there are those who are better who can decide for those who are not as smart the best way to do things. I'm only really vaguely paraphrasing. Like, he genuinely is like, hey, certain people have certain talents. Some of those talents are church organs. Some of those talents are you get to be smarty bossy pants and tell everybody else what to do. And one of those things is decide for people how to educate them.
Do you think he would still feel all these ways had he not had the money he had? Like, had he failed? Like, had he guessed
I would
iron,
not
steel, and then been like, nope, we moved on. We just skipped. You know what I mean? Like, would he?
It's a super interesting project. The amount to which you feel like you're entitled to dictate cultural education or because intellectual development.
Because of your...
Yes. In his Gospel of Wealth essays, he's really obsessed with material enrichment, the material comforts, as the sort of standard of progress.
Interesting.
And it's like, if it's not, like, look how much better off we are now than we were 50 years ago. He's got this very generational looking idea of progress. And he's like, nobody in their right mind would argue we're not better off now than then. And that's because of the industry of these few fine folks like me who are smart and awesome.
Wow.
And
what a gift.
I mean,
you're welcome. Read, my people.
To read these essays, as much as they are also, I think, paradigmatic for like the American philanthropic mindset. The mindset that says, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, I built something out of nothing, and now I'm owed my legacy, or whatever it is. That's what it... So anyway.
Like, look what I have to show for this thing that I've done.
Yeah. This is from one of those essays I was talking about. He says, in bestowing charity, the main consideration should be to help those who will help themselves, to provide part of the means by which those who desire to improve may do so, to give those who desire to rise the aids by which they may rise, to assist, but rarely or never to do all. Neither the individual nor the race is improved by almsgiving. Oh, God. This is so...
That's a word.
Back to what you're saying about hating charity. Like, this really is... He thinks charitable giving can do more harm than good if it doesn't empower communities. To his credit...
Do I agree?
He also is kind of interested in this idea that people won't pay as much attention or give as much interest or invest in a thing if they don't have skin in the game. People pay attention when they are asked to invest something themselves in
I'm
a
agreeing with
different
that.
way.
Right, and it's like a don't tell us, just show us kind of approach as far as like, who are you? The design varied by location, but a lot of them had Italian Renaissance or Baroque or Classical Revival or like Spanish colonialism as like a...
So he's got a look.
He's
that
got
he
a
likes.
vibe.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned earlier, it was his assistant who was the one that did a lot of the approving and denying of library designs. They did prefer some of these styles, and of course that gave them some latitude to say, no, not that one. They did have some specific goals for the inside of the library. The goal was that one librarian could see and observe everyone using this space. So there is some sort of centrally located circulation desk. The area around them will have low storage, low seating, easy view of everything, and then bookshelves line the walls. They did not want to waste wall space. So there
Walls are
wouldn't-
for books only?
Yeah, they weren't going to get approved for like a fireplace on a wall.
Do you think he would approve a fireplace in a modern Carnegie library because we have the internet now? Like, would he be like, okay, now I'll allow a creature comfort in this place?
Would they allow a creature comfort? Probably not, because that would get in the way of your bootstraps. Their goals of the library, I don't think, were to make it uncomfortable, though, because they did care a lot about windows and natural light and getting air in and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The libraries were going to be a single floor, but they could have a basement. But the basement was to be like a meeting room, restrooms, building maintenance, the staff room, something like that.
There's a modesty of this prescribed design.
I would say so,
Okay.
in some ways.
When I think about spending time in a library,
Mm-hmm.
I don't love physically being in libraries a lot of times. And I am realizing that I think that might be from this observation panopticon effect thing where somebody's already always watching you.
Yeah.
I don't like feeling like I'm being watched.
Hmm.
It just makes me self-conscious.
Okay.
Like I don't know, I'm going to have a booger or something. I don't know.
you might.
Like I don't like
Yeah,
that feeling. So
that's true.
libraries have never felt, comfy, cozy. I'm going to sit here and curl up and read a book. So I was just...
So that's part of it for you.
Yeah, it was very interesting to realize that was on purpose. And that it's about this sort of, hey, now I'm watching you. You better be an upright citizen. Like nobody be goofing around in the stacks.
Gotcha.
Somebody's always got eyes on you. I didn't realize that was an intentional design choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases, again, for the town where my parents are from, one librarian would have been enough. These are towns of less than 2,000 people. So yeah, after some time working on this, because like I said, Bertram, his personal assistant, was the one that kind of ended up taking on this passion project of theirs. He actually ended up creating a flyer that they would send out with some like design notes and things like that. So they never prescribed exactly what every library would look like, but they did have preferences. As Chelsea mentioned earlier, Bertram was known to be, especially later on, very picky. So the design goals were always welcoming, high ceilings, lots of natural light and air, no fireplaces, and Carnegie's name did not have to appear anywhere on the library.
Oh, interesting.
We are near like 5 Carnegie libraries, and so I'm going to probably make a tour at some point
we should
just
go on
to
a
go
field
by
trip.
and see. In the show notes, I'll include a link to the Carnegie's list. They have find a Carnegie library near you. And so you can go in and put your location, and it'll come up and show you what libraries are near you. And then there was a Wikipedia that I'll share as well, for Ohio at least, and it had them all indexed with pictures. It would tell you if it was still in use as a library, if it was gone altogether, if it was still physically there but no longer a library, and then if it was now on a historic registry or was part of a cultural registry. Many of them are on historic registries now. And I even included an image of a map from the National Park Service that has Carnegie libraries per million residents in 1920. In Ohio, there were between 17 and 37 Carnegie libraries per each million residents. That's
Wow.
a crazy number. Out west, California, some of these other states had 37 to 82 Carnegie libraries per million residents. So that's what I'm really not joking when I say if you're in the Midwest and out to the west, you are within earshot of one and you probably don't even realize it.
I'm really curious about that class of buildings that are still there but aren't libraries anymore, because doesn't that technically...
Yes.
Doesn't that
would negate the
would
agreement.
The terms. That's
Yes.
against the terms. Because
Yes.
another part of the terms that they signed, in addition to funding it, is that they can't sell these buildings. It has to be in perpetuity a library.
And everything has to be free in the building. That was part of the agreement. It's all free. Wish I had the money to just go plopping libraries around, you know?
Carnegie is interested in a particular kind of project with these libraries. He wants, it's not just about building libraries. He's really trying to build a kind of citizen with these library grants. So what do you think that this project overall suggests about some of his underlying social, educational philosophies?
It definitely seems like your failures are your fault. Right?
Okay.
It definitely comes off as a man who maybe had no empathy.
What does he think about people and about the educational project is true that you as a teacher cannot think is true? Because as a public school teacher, you have to immediately and fully reckon with the notion that this is an education for all. As a philanthropist, he's like trying to help the common man or the community or whatever that is, but then he puts silently sometimes all of these restrictions on that definition about who counts as that citizen that he gets to help.
I mean, to start off with, it had to be an English-speaking place. I mean, that's one factor for him.
Well, what do you think the lesson is for other philanthropists who are trying to define who they serve, especially ones working in educational missions? I think this tells me that he's a person who was previously on the outside, now is on the inside, and wants to maintain that status. Okay. That's what it feels like to me. I've been there. I've done that. I'm beyond that. I'll never go back there again. And anybody who's not willing to work as hard as I did to say goodbye to that life doesn't deserve any of my attention or my time. You're entitled to that thought if you want it, but does that make you a person who's a good person to set a mission for education across a country?
Probably not, right? But it just reinforces all of the worst things.
I'm saying this as a person who absolutely adores libraries. So I have, this is a complicated thing for me to work out. But I do have a lot of questions about this project in particular because it does a lot of things like erase local curation. He's like, okay, we got to standardize this. We got to get the Dewey Decimal System in everywhere. We got to get this, and this in these places. He's got this vision for library making across the country. Yeah. And it's like, what do you lose in this kind of uniformity?
That's an interesting question. I've never thought about before the Dewey Decimal and how it could have been better.
Well, the local library system close to us, they sort their books with the Dewey Decimal System, but every year they make a decision about which books to keep in the collection and which ones to retire from the collection. Yeah. And they do that, as far as I understand, based on over underperformers or whatever it is in a Dewey Decimal category or classification. So the existence of that system itself is now dictating the content in a way, not directly, but is playing a part in dictating what content people get to read on shelves all across the country.
It's also interesting because then you think about we can't really appreciate it in the way that you could then, but I wonder if it was like, oh, well, this is a Carnegie library and that one's the trash one down the street. Like I wonder if there was socially something about, because, some communities certainly would have had non-Carnegie libraries too. So I wonder if there was up the street and such, they got that grant.
A gilded
age. Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that was happening with the extreme rocketing of wealth, those attitudes wouldn't totally surprise me, at least a little bit. People were all talking about society and being in society and who gets to be in new society. And
maybe my lens of this is not as pointed as yours because I don't know as much about Carnegie. I still think that there is some romantic thing that's build them these palaces, right? Give them to the people. Let these libraries be theirs and they will whatever.
It's even in that phrase you just said, palaces for the people. That's what he called libraries. That's
I was actually referencing that. I think your book that you had mentioned. I didn't know that was actually a quote.
Yeah, it's from him. But how do we shift philanthropic attitudes from palaces for the people to palaces by the people?
It would be an interesting situation if he also said, here are 500 books and I have curated them
the fact that he didn't prescribe the specific collections is evidence that he wasn't interested in that kind of paternalism.
I'm not going to speak for Carnegie, but it does come off as
more generous than I'm giving him credit for, maybe.
But maybe I shouldn't. Like, your lens is probably much more based on the man himself. And I this is what I was trying to get to earlier when we talked about, like, the hero worshiping of something like this, because I'm still like, oh man, so great. So many libraries. And now I'm like, tear them all down.
No. The legacy here is not tear them all down.
No,
it's
I know.
just how do we look at the legacy of these types of social projects and say this was successful, or here's where we could have done a little bit better, or whatever it is.
Yeah. I was not reading it as, I will give you a library so that success is this. I was reading it as, I will give you a place for you to put your books and you can come here and learn from them. And so I think my perspective is just that. I'm looking at him the same way that the people ask, like, is a book dangerous? For some people it isn't, for some people it isn't. Mm-hmm. So, like, as a library success, I was looking at it as, like, thank God Mount Sterling got a library. If I had a lot of money today, I still think I'd want to build libraries.
Yeah.
Like, I think even today I see it as all of the things that we're questioning, you know?
How do you measure the success of this kind of a social project?
But do we measure success of this? Do we have to?
Well, we are for Carnegie, because he's very interested in making sure he's not wasting he called it surplus wealth a lot.
He wants everyone to be as rich as him. Like, he is basically like, if you're not as rich as me, go read more books. Well, you could be better.
That's the material goods framing that I keep questioning whether that as a starting point for widespread social change is a good idea.
And maybe Carnegie today would be pleased that the reading levels are what they are. Like, maybe Carnegie would be happy that more people can walk into a library and actually read a book than before. I don't know what he would say success is. Maybe he would have just said the success was how many. I don't know how a library measures
my
success
question is,
today.
Okay, yeah, that's really my question is, like, how do we in general measure the success of social projects, especially ones that are like long-term and broad impact?
Yeah. Do you think it would have changed had he been like, these are the only books you can have in it and here are 1,000 of them?
I think people would have been much less interested in it at that point.
I think what's cool about libraries is that we're going to keep measuring them differently the longer that they exist.
Is that because they do change? Like, they evolve with social needs? Yeah.
Well, yeah, because had you told Marian the Librarian of 1911 audiobooks, she would fall over dead at her table.
It definitely makes me wonder how libraries, how institutions of education continue to evolve for changing times and changing social needs. Is it fair to just expect a library to be a container for books for the rest of its existence? Or in some way, does the purpose of the library change with the nature of the citizenry?
Yeah, I would say so, because I think every library is going to function differently based on exactly that. Who is their population? Who do they serve?
How do you retain your identity as a library with a mission to be educational and start to wander into some of those other territories?
To follow through on some of those things, it's not literacy at the heart of it.
I personally think that a lot of those things that libraries do are important to eventually building literacy. Yes, but that's because I'm blessed to be able to see literacy more as like a whole human being kind of project, and that's
parts of.
But yeah, I'm just again still thinking about it from this kind of philanthropy mindset. Like, okay, brass tacks, you're the one who has to write the budget at the end of the day. How do you make the determination? Well, this is how I'm going to spend the dollar now. This is most aligned with the mission. It's a hard thing.
It is a hard thing. I follow a lot of librarians and media people. It's very interesting hearing them talk about how you get new books and how you know the data to support that. And I think Carnegie would be thrilled to know the data that's involved. I think that would excite him greatly. These communities, people had to come together and write letters and make contacts and reach out and follow paper trails. And it wasn't just a cookie cutter. It wasn't just, oh, here's your library. It was back and forth and agreements and disagreements. And
so it's a success because of the way it came into being as like a cooperative social project.
I mean, I think it is a success that 2,500 communities did the work to get the approval because they knew in a library was important for them to have.
Mm-hmm.
This is the part of the show where we told you what we learned. I'm going to tell you about Calamity Jane.
How did you find this information about Calamity Jane?
Chelsea made me research her special interest for a podcast topic. I was researching
You were reading
Carnegie.
ancient newspaper.
I love an old newspaper.
Microfiche, it looked like.
This is not far from a fun night for me. This was a hilarious newspaper. On one side, this was all below the fold. It was just a list of all of these towns and cities that had gotten grants, Carnegie money for libraries, right? So it was just like this huge long list. And then beside it was basically an announcement that Calamity Jane had checked herself into a poorhouse to die. And I was just like, what am I reading? So, Calamity Jane.
She was in one of those almshouses that Carnegie would have hated.
She literally was.
Uh-huh.
They called it the poorhouse, obviously. I want to be clear. That isn't a phrase I was just like using willy-nilly. Like, that is what was written in the article that I read out loud to Chelsea because I started giggling so hard. I'll include the article in the show notes because it was just so fun to read. But
she sounded a little dramatic.
Okay, so Chelsea and I have actually had a run-in with Calamity Jane.
Oh.
Not her physical self.
Her ghostly self.
Imagine. No, we've been
We're
to
gonna
Deadwood.
get haunted after this episode.
We've been to Deadwood.
We have.
We've spent time in Deadwood. We loved Deadwood, actually. We had a really great time there. She wound up in Deadwood for quite some time. But the article was basically just like, she was a man, except for she had 8 or 10 husbands.
It was like a cross between a profile and a cry for help. It really
and
was.
an obituary. It was
kind
like...
of. She was still very much alive,
She
though.
was alive, but she just like had no money and no career and nobody wanted to see her in the shows anymore. So she just like checked into the almshouse to be like, this is where I'll die. She was like 48.
It
She
felt
was
like I was reading an article from like a UK tabloid.
It did. I think it was because it would be like, and she broke into tears. It would kind of characterize
melodramatic.
her. Yeah, it was like, and then she sobbed. And I was like, did Calamity Jane cry? Probably not. But then it would also make like these horribly racist comments. That were so problematic.
It was a trip.
But anyways, I like living in a world where on one side of the newspaper you were reading about how many libraries just got given out across the United States, and on the other side you were reading about Calamity Jane's career demise and loss of 8 husbands and just the back and forth of the Wild West. Anyways, if you're curious about Calamity Jane, I'll include that. And also, if you haven't been to Deadwood, South Dakota, I really recommend it. You will hear all kinds of fun stories, and you will just walk by signs that say, so-and-so died here after he cheated at poker or something like that. And that was Deadwood in a nutshell. What did you learn about?
Well,
what technology did you discover that will change the world? And meanwhile, I'm like...
I did learn about technology, but it's not life-changing.
Can you do just something less...
It's not that. It's not that big. You'll like it.
I know.
So, well, you're the one who's always making jokes about NPR voice. You remember?
Yeah,
you remember
you
this?
have an NPR voice.
What do you mean when you say NPR voice? This is a great question. It's related.
It's the
what I learned.
It's the persona that you turn on in your head when you're about to go live on the podcast mic, because the way that you speak on this mic and the face that you make, this is not you. I imagine it the same as what it would be like to watch you act on stage. You do like your Katy Perry
get into character
podcast voice. This is Chelsea. Hello, everybody.
That's what I learned about this week.
Perfect.
A guy who very much does work for NPR. His name is David Green. He is the host, the former host of Morning Edition and Up First. I don't know if you know those NPR shows, but he's got tons of hours of his voice out in the internet sphere, and he is suing Google because Google apparently has an AI voice that sounds like it might have been trained on his voice to the point where he had dozens and dozens of colleagues emailing him, asking him, hey, you've probably heard this already, but did they use your voice to train this thing? Because it sounds just like you.
Yikes.
And Google's been like, no, we paid somebody else to do this. It's not.
Who sounds just like you.
It's not this guy. So that's what I learned. Weird world out there.
Anything else?
I don't think so. That about wraps it up.
We've done enough.
Okay. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
See ya.
Bye. Hello, listeners, and thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of 16 to 1. This show is produced by a two-woman team. Your co-hosts Katie Day, our lead researcher and social media manager, and Chelsea Adams, that's me. I edit and produce the show, and I also make the music you hear in our episodes. Visit our website at 16to1.com for show notes and resources, or to get in touch with us. 16 to 1 is sponsored by Moonbeam Multimedia, a firm that partners with civic innovators, educators, and mission-driven organizations to help create stronger communities.
So, he's born in Scotland.
Someday he'll get out of Scotland.
Not yet.
Not yet.
You keep dragging me back to Scotland.